Just after 8 o'clock, Saturday, April 27th, the 2024 NFL Draft is now in the rearview mirror. And not only will we go through and recap day 3, but we're going to take a look at the entire weekend, the last 3 days. It was a frenzy across the NFL and, of course, from a Ravens perspective as well. Welcome inside the vault. I'm Bobby Trosset. Sarah Ellison will be joining me momentarily. Glad you're with us. This episode's brought to you by our friends at GEHA, Government Employees Health Association. So, okay, 3 days down. Of course, the undrafted free agency frenzy is already beginning, and you're seeing tweets about guys that did not hear their names called over the last 3 days being linked to different teams. So, of course, we'll follow that in the coming days. But we'll begin with, again, the weekend that was. And here you have it. 9 total picks, beginning with Nate Wiggins on opening night, 30th overall, the Clemson cornerback. Then Roger Rosengarten out of Washington at 62. Got day 2 started. Potentially a plug-and-play starting right tackle. He'll certainly have an opportunity to win that job. Sure looks like it. Adisa Isaac was the lone round 3 pick at 93 overall, outside linebacker out of Penn State, who was teammates with former first-round pick Adafe Owe, who's, by the way, his fifth-year option decision looms next week, May 2nd. The Ravens have to either decline or pick up that fifth-year contract option. Devontae Walker got day 3. Again, today started. The wide receiver out of North Carolina went 113 overall in the 4th round. TJ Tampa, a cornerback who, you talk about a value pick, perhaps the biggest value pick of them all for the Ravens, at 130 overall in the 4th round, a cornerback out of Iowa State that we'll definitely dive into. And we're going to dive into each one of these prospects one by one in just a bit. Then in the 5th round, they addressed the running back need, which, of course, we all knew was coming. A little bit of depth, especially while Keaton Mitchell recovers from his ACL tear from a season ago. Rasheen Ali from Marshall, very productive, has some ball security issues, some durability concerns, certainly led to him dropping, but we'll dive into him. At round 6, it was Devin Leary, a backup, clearly a backup quarterback out of Kentucky. Very productive career. He'll have a chance to be Lamar's primary backup. May not happen this year, barring something unforeseen, based on what John Harbaugh just had to say in his press conference to wrap up the weekend. Sure looks like Josh Johnson, it's his job to lose, but perhaps Devin Leary, the primary backup of the future. Looking ahead, the Ravens had 2 7th-round picks, which just finished up within the last hour or so. They took a center, Nick Samac, from Michigan State, the only Spartan to ever be drafted by the Ravens from that program in their 27-plus year history. And then, of course, they round things out, filling in some safety depth with Geno Stone departing in free agency at 250 overall, Sanusi Kane from Purdue. So that is your 2024 draft class. No trades. Can you believe it? Somewhat shocking, but no trades, not one throughout the entire 3 days. There were a bunch of opportunities to do so. I believe 1 or 2 to go up on opening night. They had, 8 potential options to trade back. But Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh and everybody maintained that patience was a key theme from this year's draft. They stood true to their discipline. They stood true to their analytics system and let the board fall to them. And I think on opening night, certainly we'll have to see how Wiggins' career pans out, but that could be looked at as, I think, a solid way of just, hey, let's stay true to ourselves here. Let's see the way that this shakes out, and you get a guy who many believe is the best cover corner, I should say, in the entire draft out of Clemson. What we're going to do right now in terms of chronological order is, because we've already taken a look and done a deep dive into days 1 and day 2, we'll start with today and the way it began with Devontae Walker out of North Carolina in the 4th round. We'll go all the way through today, and then we'll start to take a look and revisit days 1 and 2 to kind of put this all, kind of put a bow on the entire weekend that was. And we'll also probably take a look ahead at some point, maybe not today, at our fantastic interview with former Raven turned ESPN analyst Robert Griffin III. He joined us for almost an hour, very spontaneously last night. I had a chance to get to know him during my first year with the Ravens radio team in 2019, which was Lamar's first MVP season. And I just was really, really pleased with all the insight he gave us. Very appreciative of Robert Griffin III. So you can go check that out. We singled it up and chopped it up into a 55-minute conversation that you can find in the Vault archive. So go check that out after we're finished here. But let's begin with the newest Ravens wide receiver, and that is Devontae Walker. And as Jeff Zarebek noted on Twitter, and I cannot agree more, and you better believe that if you've been following the show, I've been pounding the table for this, right? The diversification of the wide receiver room, a little flavor, a little blend with a guy who, again, brings you some size, explosiveness, a vertical threat. He's got some polish to figure out, and we'll get to what Steve Smith Sr. had to say about Tez in just a bit. But 6'1", 193, runs a 4.36 40. Okay. Nate Wiggins, who the Ravens drafted in the first round out of Clemson, like I mentioned, allowed just one 20-plus yard completion last year. Okay. And that was to Devontae. So these two are going to match up again as they did a year ago, Clemson and UNC. And let me tell you, that matchup was fun to watch. I've seen some of the highlights. Go back and watch that game. Devontae in 2023, 10 receptions on 20-plus yard throws last season. That was good for third among ACC wide receivers, entire conference wide. So, again, you're getting a vertical threat. You're getting somebody who I think most importantly doesn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders entering his rookie year. Now, former first-round picks like Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and Marquise Hollywood Brown, they couldn't say the same thing. Right? You come in with a major expectation. And so the best part is for Devontae, I got to think the fit and the situation is better than you could ever hope. Now, did he want to slip to the fourth? I'm sure he didn't. No, I'm sure he didn't want to. He's a competitor at heart. But at the same time, I got to think that if you're looking at it, where you could go and you fall to Baltimore, Sarah, Devontae is looking at a situation where not only is there playmaking around him, but he's going to be set up for success here, and it doesn't have to happen right away. And so when I start looking at it just solely from the fit itself, I really like this decision by the Ravens. He's somebody who's going to absolutely provide that vertical threat that perhaps this offense has been lacking. We know that the measurables are not all that different than Rashad Bateman. Okay, 6'1" and change, 193 pounds, 33 and a quarter inch arms, that 4.36 40. His athleticism, I think, is extremely enticing, and clearly the Ravens wanted to grab him when they could, Sarah, and it comes on day 3.
And he's that, as you said, contested catches guy that you've been asking for, not necessarily like a 6'3" or 6'4" guy, but certainly a contested catches guy. And when you talk about a downfield threat here, Bobby, we're talking about 9 receptions last year of at least 20 yards.
Yeah.
That led the ACC since his debut on October 14th, and he had a late start because of the NCAA eligibility issues, which were really bizarre. Like it was crazy. There was a big public battle between North Carolina and, coaches there and leaders there. And then the NCAA went back and forth, and finally NCAA broke down and let him in. And his whole career was hanging in the balance. And so that's another reason why the Ravens like him, is because they've seen how he responds in football adversity, right?
Yep.
Like when things aren't going your way, and he gets a slow start to a brand new team where he had just transferred to, and still was able to put that up. Just to put that in perspective, those 9 receptions of over 20 yards from October 14 on, so not a lot of games, that was more than half of what the Ravens receivers did last year. The Ravens receivers had 16 of those. So, so yeah, he was the third Bobby. There was only 3 wide receivers at the combine who had a sub 4.440. He was the third. The other 2, I know that you know. One's Xavier Worthy, one is Xavier Legette. He doesn't have an Xavier name, but it is Devontae Walker. And Bobby, by far, he was my favorite. Maybe not by far. My second favorite was Wiggins. But listening to his phone call when Eric DaCosta called him to tell him, I lost it when because they're talking back and forth and EDC's telling him how much he likes him, and then it takes a couple minutes into the phone call that, EDC says, "Hey, well, we're picking you." And Devontae's voice just cracked when he said, "Oh, I appreciate it." He called EDC the coach, but everybody did. It seemed like everybody kept calling him coach on these phone calls, and his voice cracked. And he has just been through so much, and he's got so much room to grow. I don't know if you already played your Steve Smith clip.
It's coming up.
But because he even said it in his conference with the Baltimore media, he's like, I still got some route running stuff that I can be better at because he's been through so much football adversity. And that, like, there's just still so much room to grow that now it's like, just take that vertical, take the top off, try to take that 8th defender out of the box when Derrick Henry's in there, right? Go deep, make other teams be honest because of that. And that's all you really got to do your first year as you're developing your route running skills.
One of the themes of the draft, Sarah, was speed, and they added a lot of it. We mentioned that we're at 40 time for Devontae, 4.36. Remember, it was 4.28 for a guy he matched up with. I referenced that a minute ago last year, UNC at Clemson. Oh, now they're teammates, and here they are on the screen right now. You got Devontae carrying the football and going after him and catching up from behind. Nate Wiggins, the 20-year-old first-round selection on opening night. And you transcribed Devontae talking about the battle and this matchup between the two of them in college. And he said, quote, "He's a very good player. Honestly, he was probably the best player I ever went against. He was very fluid in his technique, very fast. He was one of the few guys that was hip for hip with me. I'm glad to be able to compete against him every day in practice," and we are as well, because this is going to be a lot of fun. But again, you cannot overstate it, right? The element of speed that they added over the last few days and what they already have, especially in their backfield when Keaton gets back healthy, right? We already know Lamar and the new physique that he presents. He didn't need to become faster, but I'm sure he will. He's not losing any kind of speed. So clear, it was pretty clear throughout the last few days what EDC was looking for. And you mentioned that, by the way, like the value of a good story and that check box, whether it's football adversity or off the field adversity. And Devontae actually has both. At a young age, as young as a high school student, he was taking care of his grandmother. So not only did he feel, it seems like, reading the tea leaves, this pressure and maybe even this commitment and loyalty to stay home, which he ended up being at UNC with other offers on the table from big time schools like Penn State and Tennessee. But then you add in that eligibility issue that you mentioned, which is kind of a load of nonsense from what I remember reading up on it. It was sort of an old, outdated rule.
No, it was a brand new rule they put in.
Was it?
Yeah. So what I had read is that he had transferred to North Carolina in January, a couple of days before the new rule, which was put in January. That if you transfer twice within your collegiate career, then the second time you have to sit out a year.
I got you.
And they were petitioning a waiver, and because he had a transfer for one of his schools because they canceled the season because of COVID, and another one he delayed his enrollment because of a knee injury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So NC Central was the year during a pandemic season that got canceled. Then he goes to Kent State, rides the bench. Right, breaks out in his second year there, goes for 100 yards, 7 catches against Georgia. Of course, that's going to get the people talking. Then he enters the transfer portal, chooses UNC over, like I said, some of those big time schools because of the need to stay around his sick grandmother at the time. Then is ruled ineligible to begin last season for UNC. So what does he do? He doesn't sit around and pout. Of course, he fought it, but he said, you know what? I'm going to be the scout team wide receiver. And then when he finally was ruled eligible, you mentioned the stats, ripped it over the last 7 games, and here he is. So and even I think it was David Blackburn mentioned it during the post game during the post draft press conference. These guys look for that. If you can check that box, right? That because you know what it makes me think of right now, and it's very different. But Jackson Holliday was just demoted, Orioles down into the farm system after struggling for 2 weeks at the plate. He had never, Sarah, he's 20 years old. He had never truly experienced an extended period of failure until he got to the highest level you can possibly get when everybody's looking at you. You're the top prospect in all of baseball. How are you going to respond to that?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately for Jackson, like you wish that adversity had come almost in a weird way prior to the show, so that once he got up, he could make those adjustments. Now he's going to have a chance to go and reset down the farm system, and hopefully we'll see him up soon. But where I'm going with this to tie it back into Devontae is he's already got that inner discipline, fighting from within, digging deep. That's already happened for him.
Yep.
And so you got to think that even though it's completely different and you're going up against everybody who's one of one at the NFL level, he's already been there, done that. And I think when adversity comes in the NFL, inevitably, he's going to be ready for it.
I really do think people underestimate like the story angle. Of course, these scouts always scout the football. I mean, that's always going to come first and foremost. But the story side, here's what the Ravens value in addition to talent, okay? It's your bloodline. Do you come from a football family because you know what it takes? And it's like in your blood. It's what you eat. It's what you drink. It's what you sleep. They love that. And then the second thing of like, have you been through adversity and how did you respond? And it's tough because, it's just, if you're coming from an organization where your job is on the line, you're a coach or you're a GM or whatever it is, and your whole career and your legacy is on selecting the correct people. And there is a comfort level that you can just have when you have a Devontae Walker and be like, wow, look what he did when opportunities were taken away from him. I'm going to go to the scout team. I'm going to be ready if I get eligibility, all that kind of stuff. Like this whole thing where it's like, I got to be next to my family and help them out in times of need. Like it says stuff about their character and it's comforting to those scouts that they do that. Two other notes I wanted to get to. One, I forgot to say when I was talking about his 20-yard receptions, 20+ yard receptions. Yeah. Remember, Higgins only gave up 1 reception all year.
Wiggins, yeah.
Yeah, I keep saying Higgins. Wiggins, that's going to happen to me a few times. Wiggins had gave up 1 20+ yard reception all year long. And it was to Devontae Walker.
To his teammate. To his new teammate.
The second thing I wanted to note, when Eric DaCosta gave his rundown of every single draft pick after the draft was over, he said that Devontae Walker reminded him of Torrey Smith. So that's the Ravens comp for him. Yeah, that's the Ravens comp for him. So he said.
Did you hear his comp for himself?
He said, was it his comp or the guy he looked up to? He said AJ Green. Yeah, he said it was more a guy he looked up to, AJ Green, which I get. You're a receiver. Yeah. AJ Green, we know better than anybody in Baltimore. He was a monster and he kills you. We called him the Raven Killer, right? So that's
Sarah, he was well studied. He sets it up with you guys ain't gonna like this.
He's like, they're not gonna like this in Baltimore, but it was AJ Green. But yeah, so I heard that. But yeah, so Eric DaCosta said it was Torrey Smith. Here was the direct quote. He goes, this is what Eric DaCosta said about him. We had 6 or 7 names of guys we wanted to pick with our first 4th round pick, and we got them. Yeah. Tez was one of those guys. You get a vertical receiver with size and speed. In some ways, he reminds me of Torrey Smith. An outside, take the top off, vertical threat with good size. Phenomenal kid, speaking to his off-field stuff. He said, excellent jumping ability. Man, I wouldn't hate a fourth rounder having a Torrey Smith like rookie contract year. Let's sign me up for that. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Steve Smith Sr. analysis coming up shortly. But before we do, I just wanted to share quickly this little exchange I had with former NFL quarterback for over a decade. He was all around. Here he is on the screen right now, backing up Drew Brees several years ago with Sean Payton during their time together in New Orleans. But Chase is in the media side nationally now. And he tweeted out that the Ravens taking Tez Walker may end up being the steal of the draft. I loved this guy and think he has a bright future. Ravens trying to
might
keep
have a couple potential steals of the draft.
perhaps, and we're going to get to one of them next at the corner position.
Yeah.
But Ravens trying to keep up with the Chiefs, he tweets. So I quote tweet him and said, EDC potentially hitting on wide receiver in back-to-back drafts. Like, yeah, give it to me. And he writes back immediately and says, not potentially, ... in caps. He did hit in back-to-back drafts. And I said, oh, okay. Well, he hasn't played a snap yet, but okay. Devontae Walker in Chase Daniel's mind, for what it's worth, who's a former NFL QB who knows these guys and studies these guys and understands what it takes. I thought that was
well, and that's awesome. But what's nice to know is that, again, because the Ravens know who their top guys are, this is not different from the Torrey Smith situation. Torrey Smith, they plugged him in right away as a rookie, and he had a couple of tough games, and people already calling him a bust, which is just ridiculous. And then he took off from there. Devontae is in a really good spot because he doesn't need to be thrown in, and he can develop a bit. But because nobody else on the team really does what he does, he's gonna get his spots. You know what I mean? So he's gonna be in a great situation where the Ravens can put him in situations during the game to just help him excel at what he does. And in the meantime, you've already got a great route runner in Rashad Bateman. We already know what Zay Flowers is. You know what Nelly is. He's the veteran there. And then you got your tight ends. So he's definitely going to have his opportunity, but he also isn't going to be thrown into the fire. And that you really can't ask for more as a fourth-round wide receiver.
Let's get to what Agent 89 had to say. And by the way, this is just a 2-minute snippet from what was more than 31 minutes of analysis within the last month or so, as Steve does with like his top 30, or I can't remember what the actual number was in terms of how many prospects he looked into. But Steve Smith, Sarah and I were privileged to sit down with him one-on-one, as you guys may have seen a couple months ago when we were on Radio Row at Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. And he's just as good as it gets at explaining these high-level football terms in layman's speak. And so we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do, this live stream and our entire NFL draft coverage this weekend is brought to you by our friends at GEHA. And while your favorite NFL team has been planning their future, the Government Employees Health Association can help you plan for yours. From unexpected medical expenses to growing your family, GEHA has you covered with a health plan for every season of life. GEHA has offered medical and dental benefits for more than 87 years, and they are designed to meet the needs of federal employees and retirees, military retirees, and their families. And with over 2 million members and counting, GEHA continues to serve those members and families who serve all of us every single day. The Government Employees Health Association, a proud partner of the Baltimore Ravens, and your friend and federal since 1937. You can learn more today by visiting GEHA.com. Without further ado, Steve Smith Sr. on the newest Ravens wide receiver, Devontae Walker.
The gate on the stop routes. What he runs well, what he does, deep overs, ends, go route, post, glance. He needs to stop opening up the gate.
And a quick pause because one of the undrafted rookies from Maryland at the safety position, Bo Braid, is signing with the Ravens, according to a couple different reporters. So anyway, we'll track that. And here's more from Steve.
Because those routes where you need to break down, like the stops, that's where you need to attack the leverage, break down the DB. He's not there yet, but he will get there. You can clearly see all the athleticism that he has. He needs to get stronger at the finish, which that will go into filling in his body when he gets in, when they gets in a real, not saying he is not in a real weight room, but when all you do instead of going to class, you're working out. Right. You're getting strength. You're working on your hamstrings, your curls, your backs, your traps, your pecs, triceps, biceps, all of those things, those little small muscles to help you extend and create a lot of force off the release. His hands are pretty good. He can ball. Sometimes he short steps on the out routes, but his ceiling is very high because he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tire. And I just believe moving forward, once he gets with a coach that locks him in, that now he's living, breathing football constantly, harping on his game, going into details, looking at the finite little small things about his feet. Where's your right foot when you come down? Where's your left foot? Are you not being too high, not being too low, not overselling, not underselling? When he gets that, I would say next off season, you'll see dramatic change once he gets in the building. Sure. Then once he gets in off season, I would say his second year he'll come out, he may end up taking somebody's job. Because of his speed and his athleticism, and then you add the polishness of a good coach, all of a sudden, a developmental guy will all of a sudden take your job.
Keep in mind, Devontae was not in his top 20. So
in Steve's.
In Steve Smith Sr.'s top 20 going into the draft, Devontae was not in that list. And so you heard some of those things that Tez himself, even like you referenced earlier on in the stream, mentioned in his press conference that he understands there are a few polish areas that he's got to kind of work on, right? The top of the route, the finish, right? But he's probably like, you know, the intermediate route stuff, probably not going to be his thing, at least not right out of the gate. And that's okay because the Ravens have those guys. Mm-hmm. Like that's already taken care of. They need a vertical threat, somebody who's going to stretch the field. To go back to Louis Riddick a year ago, right? They're going to cover every blade of grass. They were able to do that at times with Zay, but now you have another target out there. And somebody who's proven, somebody who's going to go and get it, and just gives you that flavor that I've been craving all off season long. So it's an exciting pick. But as you see there is going to be an acclimation process for him, like every other guy.
Yeah.
And there was a reason why he didn't reach his, top 20.
Yeah. So here's what's nice when you kind of take a step back and now look at this wide receiver core. First of all, John Harbaugh was asked about it, and of course he went to bat for this group. He's like, I can't wait to line these guys up. Like he's like, we feel great about this group. If, and these are big ifs, but the Ravens Eric DeCosta has now drafted these 3 wide receivers where you have Zay as this twitchy, can hardly cover him, smaller, has great connection when things break down with Lamar Jackson. Okay. Yep. And you've got the silky route runner in Rashad Bateman. And now you've got a vertical threat. Okay. Yep. So they've drafted everything that you need, this vertical threat and contested catch guy, that on paper should fit really well together. So, but what we're going to need is Bateman to realize his potential.
Yep.
And now Devontae Walker to now develop as Steve can see in his mind, right? And they're big ifs, but if Bateman and Walker can do that, then these guys are all in Baltimore for, all 3 of them through at least 2020, the end of 2026, because that's when Bateman's new contract ends. At least the 3 of them together, right?
At the least.
But it's a matter of, and this is the golden opportunity, right? For EDC, he wants to see these guys develop because these 3 could be the ones that changes the narrative about Ravens wide receivers. Or if Bateman doesn't become what the Ravens are paying and putting their money where their mouth is, saying who we think you can be. And now with this 4th round pick, when, by the way, 4th round pick, and we're going to get to the second 4th round pick, mm-hmm. EDC straight up said, we know we could have taken some of the better guards in the 4th round, but we didn't do it because of how much we liked Tez and TJ.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the opportunity. I mean, it could turn around if these 3 guys become the base of your wide receiver core, or they're going to continue the narrative that's been here.
And you also add in the importance of feeling like they needed to trade back into the draft last year to take a flyer on Andrew Voorhees, and potentially he's your plug and play starting left guard, next fall. Like, that's a part of the equation as well. So
that's exactly it. They didn't. I mean, they asked specifically about guards. I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy that the Ravens lost their 2 starting guards, one to free agency, one they well, I guess both were to free agency. They didn't re-sign.
Both
They didn't.
were free agency, and
both
Moses
were
was
free
via
agent.
trade. Yep.
But that's crazy. You lost both of them, and so it says 2 things. One, we really like Devontae Walker and TJ at Tampa, and 2, we believe in Voorhees in Cleveland. That's the statement they're making by not taking a guard in the last 3 days.
And we're in agreement once we get to revisit day 2 and Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, the potential starting day 1 right tackle. We're definitely in agreement on your projected offensive line. So we'll have that in just a bit. But day 3 began with Devontae Walker. Then 17 picks later, the Ravens went back to cornerback. So let's talk a little bit about TJ Tampa, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here he is. So, Iowa State cornerback. And, of course, not the first time they've gone to the Iowa State well. Charlie Kohler welcomed TJ, his former teammate, to the Ravens on social media. But, by the way, this TJ dude, you talk about a value pick, and you mentioned it earlier on when I said that some folks were referring to Devontae as the steal of the draft. Could this be another candidate for that as well?
That's what Mel Kiper Jr. said. He said it was one of the steals. Yep, he said it was one of the steals of the draft. He was ranked 38th on Mel Kiper's board. Ravens got him at 130, and I think Athletics Burglar how do you say his name?
Dane Brugler, yeah.
Dane Brugler. I think he had him in his 40s, like mid 40s. Ravens got him at 130. Yeah, and if you go to like those places where they put all of the boards together, I mean, kind of same place. 30s, 40s is where he was at on most people boards.
Wow.
So that tells you the Ravens. Eric DeCosta said in the post presser here, the post draft presser, he said that he's like honestly, we would have taken him day 2 if we hadn't already gotten Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where we had him. And so
think about that.
You think about that.
And they got him on day 3.
And they got him at day 3 at the end of the 4th round. And so this was one of those, we didn't plan to draft 2 corners, especially with our 1st and 4th rounders, but we already know Wiggins fell, right? We know that he was ranked in the Ravens top 20, anywhere between 13 and 20. And the Ravens got him at 30. And then here comes TJ, who they had ranked to take on the 2nd day, meaning the 2nd or 3rd round. And it's just like, how do we pass this up?
Yep.
And they basically said, we can't. We have to take him. So Ravens cornerback group is now stocked.
Yeah, for sure.
Stocked.
And we know how quickly that can become thin in the NFL too. And we've seen it time and time again in Baltimore in recent years. So maybe not a worry right out of the gate because of that investment. PFF gave him a grade for the 2023 season of 86.8. That was 2nd among Big 12 corners, and there were quite a few in that conference. He's also an athletic freak. Jumps out of the gym, literally. He's a former hoop star. Those videos are going around. Ravens tweeted some of his highlights from back in the day. He is a converted wide receiver, which the Ravens have had success with, not necessarily specifically with that conversion, but we all know Brandon Stevens, who's turned into having a great breakout season last year used to be a running back out of SMU. So anyway,
not to mention not only converted receiver, but he was like a hoop star. So this is another reason why they feel like his ceiling is even greater, because he's kind of new to the cornerback position after playing hoops and then playing wide receiver, and now he's a corner.
Right. Allowing just one touchdown and over 900 defensive snaps for the Iowa State Cyclones. And you put together a few different bullet points as well in terms of some of the intangibles.
Yeah, 24 pass breakups there. Like I said, major room for growth because, he's kind of new to the position. Tools to play outside, tools to play man cover. When Eric DaCosta and David Blackburn talked about him, they kept referencing his size and his length. They really like his measurables there. So, we'll see. I mean, not giving up a whole lot. 6'1", 189. Let's go. Let's go. Put him in. And by the way, him and Wiggins, the Baltimore media asked if they knew each other at all. They were roommates at the combine.
How funny is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So
didn't chat much, but just about the alarm essentially. But
there we go.
And we got some other notes on them as well. Again, PFF looked at this move along with some of the other standout corners that went in round 4 as elite picks. So TJ Tampa joining 4 others on the PFF Elite Picks draft tracker for the 4th round, 130 overall, Iowa State cornerback. And I appreciated this story as well from Kyle Phoenix. Loyalty is a big thing for TJ Tampa. He committed to Iowa State, where he ended up playing.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirby Smart from Georgia made a big push to sign him after watching him show out in a 7-on-7 tourney. But he stayed true and trusted in him, and look at what trust in the process ended up paying dividends for him. So I just like to add that in though, because that's a pretty enticing offer when Kirby Smart and everything that he's built in Georgia comes calling. It could be easy to go back on.
That's championship potential, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And at least right now, you're not getting that, with an Iowa State program. But he stayed true. And here he is years later realizing a dream in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens. Let's keep the conversation moving. Again, it was a busy day. We'll shift gears to the 5th round now and 165 overall. The running back need was addressed. Rasheen Ali from Marshall, a ton of production, 43 career touchdowns, over 3,500 all-purpose yards. Ravens went with a back in the 5th round. There were a couple knocks in terms of why he slid Sarah to where he did. Durability being one of them, and ball security. Which comes before durability in John Harbaugh's mind. I guarantee you of that. But those were 2 knocks that definitely led to him falling. But with Keaton Mitchell, as we know, not going to be available week 1. Perhaps he could be RB3 behind Derek and Justice if he wins that training camp battle.
Yeah, Eric DaCosta was asked why he thinks he may have fallen. He's like, well, I can't really speak for other teams, but the fact that he was injured, was it during the Senior Bowl? That probably hurt him a bit. But then he's like, but, ball security is a big deal, he said. But his quote on him today was, Ali is a running back that we've really liked since the fall. We had a chance to see him at the Senior Bowl before he got hurt. And he was very, very impressive to us as a guy that can, 1, run the ball, 2, pass protect, and also catch the ball. Here's what's hilarious to me, Bobby, is I went over, what happens typically when every time there's a pick, especially if you're in the building, all the PR people bring all the draft profiles. Well, I'm not in there anymore, so I go read the draft profiles on my own. And I'm on NFL.com. They're at.
Oh, I got you right here.
Oh, you got it. Okay, this is hilarious to me. So Eric Edholm, he's one of the guys that just put these all together, right? And I'm reading the top of his analysis of Rasheen Ali, and he says, quote, "True story. I was talking to a friend at the Senior Bowl while watching Ali, and I said something to the effect of, quote, he looks like a guy the Ravens steal on day 3.
No kidding.
Just exactly what happened. And he says, clearly we're in a simulation.
They're
So
becoming predictable.
I just think it's hilarious. Predictable in that they're going to get a bunch of steals. Because what did we say? You have a quote where Chase Daniel is like, oh, he's going to be one of the steals of the draft to the Ravens. Then they said that night one with Wiggins. Then we said it the most with TJ Tampa. And now we're saying it with Rasheen Ali. It's just like people know that if you stay patient, because there's other people that like the Eagles have a reputation for being aggressive, right? The Rams have a reputation for having finally a first round pick in 6 years. Cleveland had almost like I live in Ohio, and every time I went out and about today to go do a couple of things, people are like, "Oh, the draft isn't even fun today," because they're like Browns fans. They're like, "We don't even have any picks. You guys have plenty, you know." Yeah. So no, this is what the Ravens are known for: staying patient and letting just value come to them. So anyway, he went on to say Ali took time away from football, which led to scouts digging on him more. And he has a biceps injury that will keep him out until summer. So Eric DeCosta was asked about that. He's like, yeah, it'll be a short-term type of thing. Okay. So goes on. He did, however, average more than 5 yards per rush 3 straight seasons at Marshall. So he's like a smooth runner too. Watching some of his highlights, like it doesn't even look like he's running hard. And but he's just outrunning dudes or giving it their all and like diving at his feet. And he's just like smoothly still kind of going. So, I imagine he'll just be added to the mix. You're going to need some depth for sure with the unknown timetable to Mitchell. But listen to this. When I said I was watching him run, 10 rushes of 50 plus yards since the start of 2021, which led the FBS. 7 of those came last season. Then Ali scored 25 touchdowns in 2021, which were the most by a Marshall player since Randy Moss had 26 in 1997. So, but those 11 fumbles over that time is what gives people pause.
Hold on to the rock, and you're going to get a chance to be RB3, my man. Come on, make it happen. If you're healthy, just hold on to the rock. James Ogden, our buddy from UK Ravens, the podcast, across the pond. He's been traveling, by the way. He's been in the States with his wife and his family. So shout out to James. We had him on last year's draft special. Couldn't quite nail down a time this year, so we'll have to revisit that at some point. But he tweeted out that he's got outstanding contact balance and is a good receiver out of the backfield. He can earn a spot, as we've been chatting about, but he'll need to eliminate his fumbling issues or he'll spend his career in the Harbaugh doghouse.
Doghouse. We all know what that's all about. A lot of running backs have been in there before.
And we all know that is a real thing.
Yeah, that is real as real can be.
Most recently, just ask one Melvin Gordon about that. How about that?
Doesn't matter if you're a multiple-time Pro Bowler.
Really doesn't.
You can still go to the John Harbaugh doghouse.
Hold on to the friggin' rock. Okay, we're continuing to work our way through day 3. And once we get through day 3, we'll go back and revisit the previous 2 days to kind of put this big picture and give you our thoughts on the 2024 NFL Draft from a Ravens perspective. We're glad you're here. We've got over 2,100 concurrents on this Saturday evening. I don't think we've ever done 3 straight days of live content. So this is new for us. You guys have been incredibly engaged throughout the weekend. We cannot thank you enough. And after you finish up here, I cannot stress enough, go make some time, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. I stripped the 50-plus minute interview last night with RG3 and took it out of the big 4-hour thing. And you can go look at it in the archives. It is a great conversation. He was super insightful, and we'll definitely have more on that next week with the former Ravens backup QB turned tremendous ESPN analyst. Okay, next up in the 6th round. We all knew this was coming. It was just a matter of when.
Well, I don't know. Judging by people's reactions, they were like, what? We got a QB? On our show, we've been pushing for a late round quarterback.
Oh, they must not have been listening.
The one they picked is a little surprising. We'll get into the story. But yeah, no, a lot of people are like, what?
Well,
so, yeah.
Round 6, 218 overall. Kentucky's Devin Leary comes to Baltimore. He's a 5-year starter, ton of experience under his belt. Played 1 season with the Wildcats after transferring from NC State. It's the first QB that they've actually drafted since Trace McSorley came in to back up Lamar in 2019. And of course, this was acquired through that free agency deal, even though it was in the middle of free agency, but it was via trade that sent Morgan Moses up to the Jets. So basically, some takeaways from the press conference, Sarah. I know you listened to this as well. Josh Johnson is the primary backup right now, at least as of right now. That's what John Harbaugh confirmed.
Yep.
But could this be the primary backup of the future? Sure looks like he could be in the driver's seat for that. And Malik Cunningham, just to go back to what we've discussed in recent days, wasn't even mentioned in the press conference. And that's multiple times now, Sarah, where he's had a chance to be. And he's not even in the conversation.
Right. So this one, I was definitely, it's so funny because in my mind, I was like, 6th round seems like a good spot to go ahead and get a backup quarterback. Like it 1000% is needed because we just came off a season where Lamar played all 17 games plus the playoffs. So it doesn't feel like as important as it did after the 2 prior seasons when Lamar finished injured. And it's just absolutely necessary. Now they do have Josh Johnson and it will continue to be Josh Johnson. And so it doesn't surprise me that they got like you need a backup quarterback that can keep you afloat if Lamar misses, 6 or so games. You have to have it. Who they got was a little surprising to me because Devin Leary, I expect something like a McSorley type pick, right? That can run a little bit. Yeah. Like I was looking at his numbers, I was like, let me dig down into his rushing numbers, and of course it's negative yards, which is most quarterbacks that are like drop back quarterbacks, because all those really are is just scrambling for your life or a sack or something like that while you're scrambling. And so I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem like a runner. So his backstory though is interesting. So he's a 5-year starter, 4 years at, where's my notes on him?
4 years at, it was in the previous slide. So
bring it back. Can you bring it back?
It was 4 years at NC State, and then he transferred to Kentucky just for his 5th.
Right. So the idea was that when he went to Kentucky, they were hoping that he'd be like the next Will Levis, right? And that didn't quite work out. So he's 6'1", 215 pounds. While he was at NC State, 2021 was phenomenal for him. Okay, he set while he was at NC State a school record with 35 passing touchdowns, and in 2021 he was a finalist for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. He didn't end up getting it, but that's how good his 2021 was. Yeah. He lit it up. He buys time in the pocket. He's a tough guy. Now, reading the scouting report, they're saying accuracy is somewhat of a problem, and then even some decision making because maybe he's got a little too much stress in his arm and all that kind of stuff. And here's what's crazy: he writes with his left hand. He's kind of a lefty, but he throws with his right because when he was young, he had to use his brother's right-handed baseball glove. So like that's just how it worked out. So anyway, I'm like, how did they land on him? Because from 2021, he regressed. And now that we're in the 6th round, I mean, you start talking to these guys, all of them are going to have a knock, right? Like there's a knock for Devontae Walker that he's got to become a better route runner. And he hasn't, developed he hasn't developed all the way yet. And then every guy's got a knock now. So it's just a question of, do they overcome these knocks? And so with him, he was phenomenal in 2021, and then he regressed and just didn't play as well as he did then. So why did they get him? Here's Eric DeCosta. Quote, he's a quarterback that we see as a viable backup over time. Then he said, T. Martin. So this is the Ravens quarterback coach who used to be the wide receivers coach, works with Lamar. He's
former national champ.
He's played quarterback in the league. And so what they did is Eric DeCosta gave the assignment to T. Martin. He said, why don't you go out and you find out, bring us your favorite backup type quarterbacks in this draft. And Eric said, I feel like that's the best way to do it. Like if you have a kicking coach, go give your kicking coach this assignment. Quarterbacks coach, who's a national champ, who's played in the league, give him this assignment. So T. Martin goes out and T. Martin brings back Devin Leary. So they're like, okay, I'm just surprised because, again, I just kept thinking it would be like a Trace McSorley type, somebody that can run, and that's just not who this is. But this is a T. Martin pick. And then when you listen to Devin Leary during his press conference, the Baltimore media asked him, like, did you have a sense? And he's like, I had a great convo with, and he cites T. Martin.
Yeah.
And he was like, we just had a great convo. We hit it off. And I told him, he's like, man, just whatever I can do to bring any value to the team, to bring any value to help you guys win. And so he's like, yeah, I kind of have a hunch that the Ravens might be interested just because of that connection and how much I talked with T. Martin, how much it just seemed to hit it off. So this is a T. Martin pick right here.
We'll see. See if he's in the driver's seat to be that future after 2024 primary backup, or should something happen between now and then, the primary backup. So something to monitor as we go throughout the process.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to say one other thing on the accuracy, because
boy, you really dug into Leary.
Yeah, I did. I dug into everybody.
Gracious.
I dug into everybody.
But Leary of all people, it's just funny. What do you got?
Okay, well, basically, because the Ravens were saying we're not afraid of his accuracy, at least T. Martin wasn't, but his 56% completion rate last year, 56% completion rate, ranked 62nd out of 69 qualified Power 5 quarterbacks. But the small note on that is that his pass catchers combined for an 8.5% drop rate, which was the highest in Power 5.
Okay. So
yeah. It's not all on him.
Oof, boy.
And maybe that's partly what the Ravens are looking at. I don't know. But 56% completion rate.
That's like, that makes me want to go back and look at every single fumble of Rasheen's. Like, was it mesh point stuff? Was it weather related? Like, what was it? Because there's sometimes you got to dig in and find the context that's necessary with these statistics that can be attached to blanket statements. Like, does he struggle with ball security, or were there other pieces to that puzzle? So, yeah, good stuff there. So 2 7th-round picks to wrap up today, day 3, and they went with, for the first time ever in the Michigan State program.
Really? That was the first time?
That's right.
I was about to say Derek Mason, but the Ravens didn't draft him. That was a free agent signing. Okay.
Center Nick Samak. Now remember, and of course his name's going to escape me now. Left in free agency, Sam Mustipher. So this was a replacement of him.
Yep.
And he's Nick started 32 games over his Michigan State career, and of course, any chance I get to pull in Cole's work, who was fantastic last night, and was actually kind of funny. He joined me for the first half of RG3, and you joined me for the second half.
There we go.
Both of which were extremely spontaneous and unplanned. Right. So yesterday was pretty funny, but you and I are always going to defer to him when it comes to offensive line. And so he says he loves the pick. It aligns with, of course, needing that backup center to Tyler Linderbaum. He's not very powerful, but he has the quickness and first step to thrive in a zone scheme. It's a developmental piece that fits the transition to a more athletic and zone-based offensive line. So,
exactly it.
Yep. Cole Jackson, and then Dane Brugler chiming in. Well, this is actually about the other 7th-round pick, but what did you have on Samak?
So 6'4", 307. Started those 32 games in those 3 years. Totally agree with what Cole said. The scouting report on him is that he's not super powerful, but like really smart, tough. Powerful and tough. I love this. Cole said this last night to RG3, and RG3 was like, "Okay, Cole, I see that you know what you're talking about." He said, "You can teach strength, but you can't teach toughness." Yep. Right? So you get guys in the weight room, try to build up their strength. Toughness is a mentality. Toughness is guts. Toughness is like, I'm going to stick my nose in here and I'm coming in. I'm coming in hot. Yep. And so he's tough, but not the most powerful guy. But again, doesn't necessarily, it matters. It'd be nice to have super powerful guys, but now we are in the 7th round. Cole's exactly right. You brought up several times speed, right? Speed. That is also true among on this offensive line under Todd Monken. Roger was the fastest at the combine 40. Was it among offensive tackles or all offensive linemen? I can't remember.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'll look it up. I'll find out.
But when I said the trend, right? Like earlier on, like to your point, when I said trend or the theme of the draft was speed, yeah, it's not just from the playmakers.
Right.
It's every single position, not everyone, but like they were targeting that. And so, hey, now you got the big boys up front that can help to, Lamar's going to extend these plays. He's going to freelance.
Here it
There's
is.
going to be things break down off schedule. Like, hey, let's run with them.
4.92 second 40-yard dash, the fastest speed of any offensive lineman. So all offensive linemen at this year's NFL Combine. And the fastest by any 300-pounder, regardless of position.
Good for
At the
him.
Combine. So my point is Rodgers, so he's fast, but also so is it Samac or Samac?
It's
Yeah.
Samac.
Oh, it's Samac.
Yeah.
Okay, Samac. So anyway, Cole's absolutely right. Under Todd Monken, he wants a different offensive line. He wants an offensive line that he only has to use 5 blockers. He doesn't want to bring in chippers with tight ends and all that kind of stuff. He wants you to figure it out among the 5 of you. And he wants some more zone blocking. And so this is different from Roman, where it was just like you wanted just big bodies that like you can't get around. So Samac smart and can get to that second line. He can pull all that kind of stuff. So he is just like Roger, is more of an athletic offensive lineman. Here is Eric DeCosta's quote. He's on Samac, just a gritty Big Ten offensive lineman, a very good center, a very athletic guy, stays on his blocks, good sustainability, very, very intelligent, a guy that we think can back up Tyler Linderbaum. And then get this also, though, also hopefully working as a guard and develop into a swing guy for us. So when they were asked about the guard position and not getting anybody there, he obviously pointed to Cleveland and Voorhees, but he also said, but don't forget Samac, because he could be in the mix there as well.
Okay, there you go. Joe D does the rest from a developmental standpoint. The Ravens offensive line coach, long time, and he mixes and matches every single year with the different combinations that inevitably come into play. So the 7th, or I shouldn't say 7th, but the 9th and final pick for the Ravens on the weekend, that also came at the tail end of the 7th round at 250 overall, was Purdue safety Sanusi Kane. Dane Brugler on him. It's a physical presence in the run game with matchup potential and coverage. He's 5'11", 207 pounds, 25 starts at Purdue. Led the team in tackles in 2022. He's got 10 career pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles. He's a playmaker. We know Geno Stone left in free agency. Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, of course, lead the room. Darius Washington's going to try and get healthy, and we've all seen his ability. If he can maintain, and availability is a calling card of his, he's going to be in the mix. But now Kane's going to have a chance to be as well.
I want to try something here. If it doesn't work, whatever. I want to see. I found this video that I didn't have time to bring in of his coach talking about Kane. Let me see if you can hear this. Let me see if it'll play.
Well, I wish we had more guys like Sanusi King. I mean, he's a warrior. He loves football. He can hit. He can tackle. He plays hard, and he's one of our fiercest competitors.
I'll be right back.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a quick bathroom.
We only started an hour ago. You should have been prepared for this, Bobby.
you had me a little bit prior. I was all over the place.
Okay, go to the bathroom.
I'll be right back.
Don't forget to mute your mic, please.
I'm going to mute everybody. How about it?
I love it. All right, let's do this one more time. I want to listen to this one more time just so you can get an idea of how his coach describes him. Whoops, hold on.
Well, I wish we had more guys like Sanusi King. I mean, he's a warrior. He loves football. He can hit. He can tackle. He plays hard, and he's one of our fiercest competitors.
Yeah, so I like that. Listen, when you talk about a safety and you use words like he's a warrior, he's one of our fiercest competitors, and I wish I had more guys like him. Like, a coach loves you. Like, how awesome would it be if we could like duplicate Roquan Smith, right? And his attitude and try to put it in other people. I love those adjectives. Warrior, fiercest competitor. I wish we had more like him. So yeah, so he kind of brings that, which I love in a safety. But when you think about what he's going to do this year, really can't expect too much. Eric DeCosta in the post-draft presser said that Kane reminded him of former Raven safety Haruki Nakamura, but it was more because neither of them went to the combine. And so just because they were at the combine or their later picks or whatever doesn't mean that they can't be something good. So EDC said Sanusi is a tough player, which I just highlighted from his former coach, has good ball skills, should play on special teams. So it kind of sounds like that's where the Ravens are going overall with Kane, is like special teams. And then maybe he could work up. You could always have, listen, the Ravens got Geno Stone in the 7th round. But Geno, it took a minute for him to totally develop and become what he became. So this is probably one area coming out of the draft where, I mean, there's a couple areas, but this is one of a couple where I feel like the Ravens still have work to do. Eric DeCosta said in that post-draft presser that he's not finished. He was like, by no means is our team set. He's still like, I got a lot of work to do. And they're in the middle of signing a bunch of undrafted free agents. And Eric DeCosta said specifically at the safety position, he's like, we'll probably be able to sign some of these undrafted rookie safeties because they know that we've got spots available. You got Hamilton and you've got Marcus Williams. Maybe you could bring over Ardarius Washington. John Harbaugh spoke to that a little bit today, saying, but Ardarius, we love Ardarius, but he's got to show that he can stay healthy. He's transferred a little bit to cornerback. And so this is one of the areas, especially on the defense, where the Ravens are going to still have some work to do. So expect them to have some undrafted guys to come in there. Expect Kane to have some competition in there. And this is one area where they could still sign a veteran, Bobby, where I feel like they could go out and get somebody because they definitely need more depth there. They definitely need more depth.
Did you mention while we were taping, or we're live, but did you mention the undrafted rookie that they're bringing in?
I have not mentioned the specific. Was there who specifically are they bringing in?
So I mentioned it just briefly when we were in the middle. I paused the Steve Smith video.
Oh, okay.
To mention it, but now I have an updated slide.
Okay,
and
let's see it.
It's a local boy out of Maryland. Is it Brady or Braid? For those of you, I don't really watch Maryland football just because we're entrenched in the football season. But is it Bo Brady or Bo Braid? We're doing this on the fly, so somebody help me here locally. But while you guys, here he is. He's a safety. Jeff Zrebeck was on it, but he's signing an undrafted free agent deal with the Ravens. They're thin at safety, as we know. He played at River Hills, so there's the local connection. And now he's going to have a chance to make the roster this summer.
Yeah, that's going to be a position to watch.
Thank you, Zone. Thank you, Zone 16. It is Braid. So Bo Braid, who, by the way, as a youth football kid, was a part of the Columbia Ravens. So a cool little homegrown type of mark here. And he went to River Hill High, and now he's going to have a chance to make his hometown team this summer.
Very nice. Cool. Love those local stories.
Yep. So again, these are all happening. So this is kind of how it works, right? Like once the draft finishes up, you're just going to get this influx of undrafted rookie reports. So some of them are
going to be tryouts. Some are going to be, I'm going to go sign with somebody else. So I don't think, unless there's like a big name or a local one like this or whatever, we're probably not going to discuss each one until the Ravens put out their official list. Probably, yep. I don't know, early next week.
I think that's cool. Yeah. I think that's fair. So, okay, so day 3 is complete. Now I figured it'd be cool to kind of run through what we've already done, right? Days 1 and 2, just to kind of get everybody caught up to speed, just in case they're sort of checking in on what's taking place. And of course, day 2 was Roger Rosengarten, the offensive tackle out of Washington, and Adisa Isaac, the outside linebacker out of Penn State, who played football with his new teammate, former teammate, Adafe Owe. So here he is. Brugler described, and this is Sanusi Kane. So again, doing some of this on the fly. So let's see. Here he is. So round 3, pick 93. They go back to the Penn State edge rusher well. He was considered a potential second-round talent, as Jonas Schaefer noted on social. He's got some juice off the edge. He's not great against the run. He's got 69 quarterback pressures since 2022, 13 sacks, and a pass rush win rate of 13.1. Perhaps a rotational guy as early as this year, Sarah, but somebody who's going to have an opportunity to develop in what's a not jam-packed room, but somewhat established one with Adafe having a chance to kind of be that guy, even though the sack production hasn't been there. He's definitely developed. Kyle Van Noy is going to be back coming off a career year as the vet, and Ajabo is just looking to stay healthy.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a Jadeveon Clowney replacement. When this pick came in last night, we were entrenched deep with RG3 into Lamar Jackson talk. And so I'm glad we were circling back around because I really didn't get a chance to look into him and all that kind of stuff. And so, because I had asked RG3, is he a Bowser Sam type or a rush guy? And he's more of a Jadeveon Clowney kind of replacement. So here's what's crazy about him is he was Penn State's most productive edge player, even over Chop Robinson, who went in the first round.
Yep.
And so, as we pointed out, he had 7.5 sacks and 16 tackles for loss. That's not nothing. That's pretty good. Okay. So why did he fall? Why did he fall down to the third round, number 93, when he, had more than Chop? And some are saying that it's because of his 4.74 time in the 40 at the combine.
Okay.
And which was ranked towards the bottom of edge rushers. Can you also think of a former edge rusher, Ravens edge rusher, who dropped because of his slow 40 time at the combine?
Yup.
Little one Terrell Suggs.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Ravens have tape, and there are guys that just play faster than their combine scores will suggest. And Isaac has done that on the field. So he's gotten pressure in 2.5 seconds or less on 11% of his rushes, and that ranks second in the FBS behind Texas State's Ben Bell. So I'll tell you what, though, man, I feel like one of the reasons it's interesting to me, because when we ranked positions of need, we always put offensive line first, and then we kind of had cornerback and receiver together. But then once Bateman was re-signed, then I felt like, receiver went down for me. And I had edge rusher in there, but because we were expecting so many offensive linemen, including guards, I was a little, surprised by this one, because I was like, oh, where's your guard? we never got one, at least not a true guard. And but like, and one of the reasons why I felt like edge rusher wasn't a huge need is because I feel like they've invested so much at edge rusher. They, with Odafe. And by the way, Odafe helped recruit Isaac to Penn State. So, that's
they're buds.
They're
buds.
They're buds. Yeah. No, Isaac was told the Baltimore media. He's like, yeah, we're close.
Yeah.
So, so that's a cool reunion. Like, Odafe's got all his best friends on the team now. He's got Isaac, and he's got Ojabo there with him. So, yeah. But shoot, back to the point is that the Ravens have drafted an edge rusher in the first three rounds. This is the third time in 4 years, because they've also got Tavius Robinson. And so that's one of the reasons I was like, they got plenty of youth there, but they just keep plugging away at it. And hopefully one of these dudes break out and really go off. That's what we like, because how many times do the Ravens do this with mid-round guys? Like, it felt like they were becoming so good at it when we went through Judon and Zadarius Smith, but it feels like it's been a minute since one's really broken out.
Definitely.
And by the way, also Eric DaCosta was asked about the 5th-year option for Odafe Owe, and he kind of laughed. He's like, listen, he's like, I learned from Ozzie Newsome, don't make a decision until you absolutely have to. Yeah. He's like, so get back to me. I think is it next week they have to make a decision?
Thursday.
He said, though, I think he gave it away. I think he's going to do it, because Eric DaCosta said, I'll have an announcement for you next week. You wouldn't. Well, I guess you would announce. Would you announce we're choosing not to, or would the deadline just pass? I don't know. I got the feel. I think he's gonna. I think the way he said it made me think that he's gonna give him the 5th-year option.
Thursday, May 2nd. I think they're going to as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's deserving of it. And I think it'll be fun to watch him continue to develop, because while the sack production has not been there, he has been a force. He has been somebody that's wreaked a lot of havoc. And I think last year you saw in doses that he's no longer just going to try and use his athleticism to get around you and get to the quarterback. Like, Chuck Smith is starting to really develop him so that he has versatility and variety in his technique. And that's been fun to watch. So what's going to be fun to watch, I think, And what's one of the more interesting picks is Roger. Roger that. Roger Rosengarten. I like him. I like Roger a lot. And he was their second round pick, 62 overall, a tackle who protected Michael Penix, a top 10 quarterback. So much so that because he's a lefty, he had the blindside duties as the right tackle out in Washington. Did not allow Sarah a single sack throughout his entire collegiate career. A PFF grade of 78.6.
Say that again.
Oh, I will. He didn't allow a single sack throughout his entire collegiate career.
That is bonkers.
This is a massive human being. Somebody who the Ravens looked at the combine, somebody who they were closely connected with and thought very highly of. Go back and watch his press conference on Ravens YouTube. Your favorite part is the versatility, and I'll let you take it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, definitely my favorite part. So you kind of come into it, you're like, oh, this is a career right tackle because he started there the last 2 years. And so you're like, I'm sure that's how he finished and whatnot. And most guys that are on the right side, it's like it's probably because they're playing second fiddle to the guy that's on the left side. Not the case with Rosengarten because he was already playing left tackle. He was there for 2 years. Obviously, he wasn't a starter because he was still young, freshman and sophomore. But then it became time for him to start. And then Washington came to him and said, we want to move you to right side because Michael Penix Jr. is a left-handed quarterback. And they wanted Rosengarten to be on his blind side. So to me, he's more than a swing left or right tackle. He's we want you on our quarterback's blind side. And he's like, oh, I got you. Any side you want, any side that is his blind side, I got you.
Yep.
So we talked about this going into this. We wanted a guy that could play right tackle day one, which he can do. Ravens confirmed that, like, oh yeah, you're not going to hand it over. He's got to earn it. But I mean, I haven't seen him yet, but he hasn't had a single practice on campus, right? He's going to meet Daniel Falele. But before all that, that's the projection right now, that he's the favorite to be right tackle over Daniel Falele. And not only is he the favorite to be the day one right tackle, he's what we all wanted. He's somebody that has the ability to go over to the left side and eventually take over for Ronnie Stanley.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm sure, by the way, the Ravens during the next draft could also get another tackle. We don't know. So they're going to have options. But yeah, hometown, Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Shout out Colorado, where I was born and grew up.
Yep.
So athletic, fast guys we talked about, and he fits Monken's profile with where they're moving with this offensive line. So yeah, I like this pick too. I like it a lot.
I found a little nugget after following him on social media, and Roger, as Tyler Columbus tweeted out, has been training with Joe Staley. Now, if you don't know Joe Staley, go spruce up on who Joe Staley is. Former San Francisco 49er offensive lineman, an absolute stud, 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. He was in attendance for Rodgers' draft party last night. I think that was out west. And he's trained Roger throughout the process. And I just get the sense that Roger has a really, really good head on his shoulders. And when you have the respect of Joe Staley, one of the best that's ever played his position, I think you're going to probably have a lot easier of a time transitioning to the NFL level. So just a little wrinkle there of his process of getting to where he is. And look at these men. Look at these massive, massive human beings. That kid is probably 12 years old, and he towers over us. That's for sure. I think that maybe that's Joe's son.
Speak for yourself. He doesn't tower over me.
You sure about that?
I'm just joking.
Oh, and here's your projected offensive line that I referenced earlier on in the stream. Definitely agree with you there. Ronnie on the left-hand side, at least for one more year. Andrew Voorhees, the USC standout, who, of course, got hurt during his pre-draft process and then proceeded to put up, 38 bench press reps He's back. He's healthy. He's in the facility. And perhaps he's your plug-and-play starting left guard. We know Tyler Linderbaum is the centerpiece, both figuratively and literally. Ben Cleveland, could he be a shoe-in at right guard? We've been waiting for that opportunity. And then Roger Rosengarten, could he be in the front row seat to beat out Daniel Falele this summer and be your starting right tackle week 1? I'm with you, partner. I'm with you on this.
Yeah, I mean, just
the people want to know, by the way, are you 6
No,
feet
I'm
1? You're
just-
treating me like I'm a, I'm not going to say the word, but you're treating me like I'm a short human.
I'm just joking. From the
I am,
picture
by the
that
way.
we took. No, I like from the picture we took at the Super Bowl. Everybody acted like it was
For
like
sure.
massive. No,
For sure. I'm 5'8". You're like 5'9".
5'9" and maybe 3/4. There
Yeah.
we go. And what are you?
I got the heart of a lion.
Yeah.
5'8" and the heart of a lion.
There you go. That's right. That's right. No, so I just think this brings us back to like how absolutely crucial Eric DeCosta getting back into the 7th round last year was, because they obviously feel like Voorhees is the guy. Listen, as much as they got a steal with TJ Tampa and Devontae Walker, if they felt nervous, right, about the guard position, they had a shot at him in the fourth round, and that's what Eric DeCosta said.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're feeling pretty good. And he brought up Voorhees in Cleveland and felt good about it. And by the way, it's Cleveland's time. He's going into the 4th year. I mean, it has to be done. And we've seen him. He's had good grades when he's been out there. So it's Cleveland's time. And we haven't seen a lick of football from Voorhees because of the injury, but they have seen him inside that building. They know exactly where he's at. He's bulked up because he's been able to do nothing but lift weights, right? And so yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess they could definitely add somebody, a veteran somewhere along the line, but I have a hard time believing that anybody that's on the street right now is going to beat out these two guys unless they see Voorhees come out and just like, ooh, never mind. Or maybe Cleveland comes out out of shape or something. But he's been at the Ravens facility during the off season workout, so he's there. Yep. He doesn't. I don't even think he has to take the. If you go, I think the rule is if you go to every single day of the off-season workouts, if you have perfect attendance, you don't have to run the conditioning test.
Okay. Well,
so
remember too that stable's got depth too, right? You got Patrick McCary, who probably preferably is going to be used as more of a swing tackle, but we know in emergency situations he can play literally every position up and down the line. And then let's see what kind of development Joe D can do with Big Saleh. The second-year player out of Oregon. That they used him a little bit at times last year, so we'll have to see. But certainly, if I'm a betting man, I'm with you for lining up with these dogs week 1 to protect Lamar and kick off the 2024 season that way. Well, 3 days ago, what feels like a year ago, the Ravens got things started in round 1 with the 30th overall selection, allowing the board to kind of fall to them, exercising that patience, right? And believing in the analytical system Eric DeCosta referenced many times throughout his press conferences this weekend, and allowed Nate Wiggins to fall in their lap from Clemson, a player that they had somewhere between their top 13 and top 20 on their overall board. And as I shared with you guys earlier on in the weekend, I did receive a text from a Clemson football staffer who referred to Nate as Ed Reed in a boundary corner's body. So clearly the hype is real. He had 3 career interceptions, 2 of which were taken back to the house, 60 career tackles. He's a playmaker. He was the second fastest player at this year's combine, behind literally a guy who broke the friggin' record in Xavier Worthy, who Kansas City leapfrogged several teams, including Baltimore, to go and get at the end of the first. You got that kind of speed to go up against the Worthys and the Jamar Chases, who we'll see twice a year. He allowed 176 yards to receivers in 10 games last season. Just 1 completion over 20 yards, which we know now was to Devontae Walker, the newest Raven. And he's the second DB in the last 21 years to get drafted in the first round after weighing less than 175 lbs at the combine. We now know after his pro day, though, he's north of 180. And I'm sure, as Eric DeCosta mentioned in one of his pressers, they'll have a plan for him to make sure that he's physically ready. And I did want to mention, too, I don't think you were here for this. Jacoby and I were texting back and forth after our stream. Jacoby Jones, former Raven. And I asked him, how much weight do you want Nate putting on before week 1? And he said, the way they play now, he's fine. But he's going to naturally gain as he gets older. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
So
he's going to grow. He's going to grow into his man body. He's 20. He said it himself. He can stretch out.
Yeah,
and he's not afraid, to get in there. He's not afraid. But, as I pointed out in one of our live streams this week, there's been a gazillion. As Deion Sanders says, show me a corner that tackles and I'll show you a corner that can't cover. Nate Wiggins can cover.
Yeah.
Okay. He can cover. So 1 touchdown allowed last year. 1. What?
Yeah.
What? And then the one of over 20 yards or more, and that was to Devontae Walker. That's still crazy to me. What's interesting, what I loved, okay, so I said Devontae Walker was my favorite phone call from Eric DeCosta to a draft pick this weekend.
Yeah.
But that was more like an emotional side, the way he just like his voice cracked and was like, thank you so much, and was so appreciative. And he obviously was missing out on football because of the NCAA eligibility, like all of that. Wiggins, okay, I liked him for a whole different reason. And it was the inner dog that came out. The inner dog came out during his draft phone call. And he's telling Eric DeCosta, who Eric DeCosta, by the way, said is the best covered corner in this draft class. Let's go. We need that. We need a covered corner. We need a guy that can just take on the speedy wide receivers on the other end. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in the AFC, in the AFC North, all that. So that's great. But he's like, Eric DeCosta calls him. He's like, oh my, and he kept calling him coach also. He's like, coach, I got you. And he's like, I swear to you. I swear. Like, I'm going to be, you're not going to regret it. I'm the best one. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I could just already feel him and that inner dog. And it's one of my favorite non-talent characteristics in players that I look for. And it's not arrogance. It's that Roquan Smith inner dog. And it seems to me that Wiggins has that. That's the feeling. If you can get yourself pumped up off of this phone call rather than, some guys are pretty calm. Some guys are crying and all. Everybody has their own way to do it. But, oh, boy, bring me that inner dog. I want it every single time.
Yeah, and he's got a chip on his the chip on the shoulder about falling didn't come across as like disrespectful or that he's unhappy to be in Baltimore. It was more like, I'm going to make these other teams pay.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a slippery slope that you have to walk, and climb during those interviews, because it is extremely emotional as you're waiting pick after pick after pick, especially when you didn't travel to Detroit, right? He was home with his family.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just sitting there pick after pick after pick, and it's your draft party, and friends and family are all around you, and they're all there for you, and you have no clue whether or not you're going in the first or second. That's tough. That's an emotional night. But here he is, less than 24 hours later, in the facility with his former Clemson teammate, Trenton
That was
Simpson.
a nice touch, having the Ravens. Yeah, it's usually Chad Steele that's out there to greet everybody when they come in from the car ride in from the airport. But that was a nice touch to put Trenton out there, former teammates. I like that. And by the way, Trenton right here, sorry to cut you off, Bobby, but he's got the purple Ravens up top and the purple Clemson down bottom.
Yeah.
I love that.
He's rolling. He's rolling that Clemson pipeline back-to-back years. And you'd have to think that both of these guys are going to have integral roles in the Ravens defense, just different levels, right?
Talk about speed. Trenton's got it too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Trenton just, stepping in there for PQ, leaving in free agency, having a year to just kind of like grind and get ready. And now you get to learn from the best in the business, and Roquan Smith playing alongside Zero. So
and listen, man, they need some depth at safety, yes. But this defensive back group, I think it's going to be nice.
Yeah.
You roll out that nickel package of Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams Marlon Humphrey, Brennan Stevens, and Nate Wiggins. That's nice. That's real nice.
Yeah.
I like it. And then at corner, you got a lot of depth now. It's April and you got a lot of depth. I mean, you got Mollett back there. You got your 2 former 4th rounders. You got our Darius Washington. There's some depth there. Just go out and get some more depth at safety. And this is a good looking DB group.
Hard to believe. Day 3 in the rearview mirror. A lot of live streaming, a lot of fun, a lot of incredible insight and perspectives from our guests that joined us all
so
throughout
much.
the weekend. And this is your 2024 class right here, headlined by the 1st overall selection, and the 30th overall, Nate Wiggins, Roger Rosengarten, potentially the day 1 starting right tackle, more outside linebacker help, and Adisa Isaac out of Penn State. The lone wide receiver in this year's draft for Baltimore, Devontae Walker, somebody a lot of folks are high on, and Steve Smith Sr. even said could end up potentially taking somebody's job once he gets his feet underneath him. TJ Tampa, massive value pick who slipped. They get him in the 4th at corner. Rasheen Ali at running back out of Marshall. Potential primary backup quarterback for the future in Devin Leary out of Kentucky. Nick Samac, backup center, and Sanusi Kane, who's going to try and make the spot, make a roster spot at safety with Geno Stone departing. So that's your crew. But Sarah, we'd be remiss if we didn't, kind of shout out every single person who made this weekend possible for us, especially that just joined us out of the courtesy of their own hearts for perspectives on football. Kevin Byrne began the weekend, longtime Ravens PR executive, a Hall of Famer, somebody who we both have just a tremendous amount of respect for, and it was a father figure to you for over a decade time spent at the facility. Jason Smith and Cole Jackson and Spencer Schultz from a film perspective, breaking it down as fellow content creators for us. They do tremendous work. Follow Jason at Huddle It Up Films. Follow Cole at Cole Jackson FB. And follow Spencer on the Exit 52 podcast or at Ravens for Dummies. These guys all have full-time jobs on the side, and yet you'd never know it, Sarah. You would never know it that they aren't full-time in football. That's how knowledgeable they are. And they give us their time. We had former players on. We had Super Bowl champions like Jamie Sharper, Kadri Ismail, Femi Ayambadejo, Jimmy Smith from the garage in California, his neighbor's place. It was awesome. He spent 40 minutes with us.
Jacoby Jones.
Marlon Humphrey is not a Super Bowl champion yet, but he hopes he is. He will be one day. And Jacoby Jones is, but they ended up doing a dual segment, which was fantastic.
That was fun.
To catch up with them on opening night. Goodness, RG3 joining last night for almost an hour.
That was sweet.
We're definitely going to revisit that. Robert Griffin III, former Raven turned ESPN analyst, I thought was just so insightful. And, man, it was really I got to thank Rocco DeSangro, who joined me yesterday. Sarah was doing birthday duties for her youngest. How many 7-year-olds did you have at the house? 20?
Yeah, we had 20 here. That
20.
was a night.
20.
Yeah.
And
I finished up, and then I finish up, and I'm like, let's see what Bobby's up to. Oh, RG3's on our show. Okay, I'll go join that conversation.
Right? I'm so glad you did.
Play with your new toys, baby. I'm going to go just jump on the stream for a minute.
And I'm so glad you did. And Ingraven joined me for the opening hour last night when I was riding solo. And, of course, Ingraven, the OG in the content creator space. So I know I speak for you, partner, when I just, and gosh, we haven't even had a chance to, mention the thousands of you out there as our consumers who have just, fully embraced the content grind that we committed to over the last 3 days. We hit a new record of concurrent viewership on opening night, just south of 10,000 at one time, joining across all platforms. Can't wait to hit that number at some point in the future. But GEHA for making this weekend possible. Our sponsor, Government Employees Health Association. It was really, it's just like we talked about the other day. it's you're filled with gratitude when these things. We're both exhausted,
Yes.
and we're I'm chugging energy drinks over here. My heart's going to come out of my my chest, but you're overcome with gratitude and appreciation over these days, because it is a grind. But when people chime in and when people want to get involved and they're engaged and they're interested and they're locked in, it just makes it all that much more worth it, and it certainly validates what we think we're doing here with this platform. So
Well,
appreciate you and appreciate everybody
yeah,
for popping through.
I echo all the shout outs you gave to all of our guests and our audience for corralling around us. Um, I want to give a shout out to you. I'm certainly exhausted, but when I log off, you have to keep going, and you're posting stuff and editing stuff and all that, and so I just wish people knew the extent to the workhorse that you are, and I've said it once and I'll keep saying it as we keep going. I just feel like we complement each other extremely well, and I'm just always so grateful for the things that you do that I can't or don't want to do. And so I appreciate you and just the massive amount of work. And then the night you gave off for me while I go to my daughter's, put together my daughter's birthday, and then I come back and you've got RG3, and I'm just like, Bobby killed it. Bobby killed it. Here he was all on his own and just managed to corral RG3. So kudos to you, and thank you for everything that you've done this weekend and that you always do.
Yeah, the feeling's mutual of that appreciation. The complementary relationship that we have partnership that we have is fantastic, and just makes you think of Thursday night, right? Like, I'm kind of in the middle of making sure that we stay in line with, okay, how are the picks coming off the board? What kind of trends are happening for the Ravens? Who's the best available? Getting things up on the screen when need be, right? Facilitating guests in and out. It would have been really hard to kind of keep the content side of things going. And so knowing that you're right there, covering my back in those moments, it's just, that's the type of, give and take that we do. And
Yep.
so it's just, that's the behind the scenes stuff that, as a facilitator and as a co-host, that is incredibly helpful and comforting. So we want to be sure to shout out our patrons, Patrick Crawley and Baltimore Sports Jam. They just signed up recently here within the last couple of days to support us on the back end through Patreon. And they did the $4.99 tier, which is a monthly shout out. And it may not seem like very much, but hey, that's a very helpful to us. It allows us to continue to build what we're building here in Baltimore. And we are very appreciative of Patrick, Baltimore Sports Jam, and our entire crew. I think close to 100 strong that support us via Patreon. So if you guys are interested in doing the same, visit patreon.com/Ravens Vault Podcast. You can find a link to that in the description of this video below. And we thank you. So goodness, comments are coming flying in from everybody. We appreciate you guys for, Bradford McCoy. I guess we met outside the Orioles game. Looking forward to getting on the other side of the draft and getting to many more throughout the summer. I know they won tonight after a disappointing first game of the series against the Athletics. Gunnar Henderson's got 9 freaking homers, and it's April 27th. So he's off to an early MVP season type of tear. But, so we're going to take off tomorrow.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to take
See you
off
Monday
tomorrow.
at noon, not a moment sooner.
I'll definitely be doing a little bit tomorrow. I'm gonna cut up. But just the fact that we're not doing this, we're not
doing a live stream, and I'm sure you're gonna, because there's so much content. We've probably put together 12 hours of content, maybe.
Yeah.
And there's so much buried in there that we just got to get it unburied, right? So yep. I'm sure that's what you're gonna try to do.
Yep, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Do I sleep? I slept. It's been tough the last couple of days, but tonight will be great. Tilly and I are just gonna chill. I think there's some NBA playoff games on right now. I still got the TV on
when
NFL
does Denver
Network.
Play again? I should know this, but the draft is taking all my time.
Denver's up 3-0. It should be tonight. Might be tonight.
I'm gonna go get some popcorn and watch that. And That's
Yeah,
what
you
I'm gonna
should.
do.
That might be tonight. So, and if it is, oh man, what like if they sweep
Dude, if
LA,
it's 4-0. You said, well, you could still be right, but you said that maybe it'll end up going to 7. I don't know.
I'll be
Where is it? Is it still in LA?
no
Because don't
team
they
in
have
a
3 in a row in LA?
Oh, okay, it's right. It's on right now. It's halftime.
What's the
This
score? What's the
this
score?
game's in LA, and the score at the half. Let's see. They're going to commercial break, so let's see if they put the score up to
Don't worry
break.
about it.
But if no team in the history of the NBA playoffs has come back from a 3-0 deficit. Wait, actually, I don't know if that's true, but maybe 3-1. Anyway, LA's up comfortably.
You can
up
tell
by
we've
like
been inundated
10
with the
plus points.
drafts. We need to
Yeah.
figure out the NBA later.
Oof.
So
Goodness.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just in terms of the scheduling and whatnot, so we're gonna take tomorrow off. I'm gonna start cutting up the RG3 episode at some point because there's a lot of stuff a lot of nuance to that needs to be shared that I think you guys will appreciate. Like I mentioned earlier on, can't stress enough, if it's tonight or tomorrow or whenever, go check it out in the archives. I grabbed that 50-minute conversation of like a 4-hour stream and made sure to separate the RG3, and you can go check that out and consume it in full right now in the archive. So we will be next back here live on the Vault, noon Eastern, on Monday the 29th. So that's our plan. Enjoy your off day. Happy belated to Ella. Glad everything went
Appreciate it.
well with your party. And I think we're all set, right?
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Really, really special. Yeah, it's always a special time, special few days, and can't wait to kind of next put together something like this the night of the schedule release. That's probably most realistically, like we're going to be live every day, in our new off-season format, but the next time we'll put together an event, I think will be the night of the schedule release. So we'll see what we can do, but until then, a special thank you to GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, and thank you to all of you for making it a very, very special weekend in 2024 NFL Draft. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trosset signing off from this Saturday evening live stream. Like the video if you've been enjoying it. Subscribe to the Vault on YouTube. Tell a friend. Tell a group message. Tell a Facebook group, because we ain't going anywhere. We're just getting started. And, man, it was a whole lot of fun these last couple days. So talk to you guys on Monday, if not before.